Alejo, why don't you ask Monish the question about how he analyzes companies?
Yeah, Monish, one question I wanted to ask you is a little technical, but I think is important. And is how do you read an annual report? Like, is your like schedule? Like, you go to the business session, then you read the risk, and how do you draw your circle of competence, like to pick what annual reports to read on?
Well, I think as far as circle of competence goes, to ask the question is to answer it. So if you are wondering whether something is within your circle of competence or not, the answer is it is not in your circle of competence. If something is within your circle of competence, you would know how to value the business, you would know how it makes money, you would know what is the likely trajectory of that business within some ranges and boundaries. So it depends on the business. So usually my most preferred starting point on a company is to see, as you know, I'm the shameless cloner, so the first thing I'm trying to ideally try to do is hopefully someone smarter than me already owns the stock, and hopefully they have made some comments about it. So the first thing I try to look for is who are the shareholders, and usually I don't need to look at the shareholders, because usually it is coming through some guy or some fund that I admire, and they have this particular company as a holding. It is ideal for me if there's a write-up on Value Investors Club. So, there are thousands of write-ups on Value Investors Club, and it's a pretty well curated site. So when I find a company that's on my radar, the first thing I look for is, okay, is there a WIC write-up? And even if the write-ups are old, I will print off all the WIC write-ups with all the messages and all the comments, everything on all the write-ups. That's the first thing I want to read, because that is giving me a digested, condensed view of the business that would take a long time if I just sat and read the annual reports. This is someone who's already digested a lot of the data, and I can ratify that later, but at least it's giving me a head start. Because the first thing I'm trying to do is, anytime I'm looking at a business, I'm looking for a reason to stop looking and take a pass. So the WIC write-ups are designed to help me get to a point where I say, no, I thought this might be interesting, but it's not that interesting, so I can let it go. If I get past the WIC write-ups and I'm still interested, usually if the company is giving us letters to shareholders, and it appears that those letters to shareholders are not written by a PR firm, then not the entire annual report. I'll have my assistant just make a PDF of all the 20 years of letters, 20, 30 years of letters, starting with the oldest one. And then I just read the letters, because then I can say, okay, what were they saying in 95? And then what happened by 2000? What were they saying in 2000? What happened by 2005? I can just see kind of what they were saying versus how the trajectory of the business has gone subsequently. The other interesting thing about reading these letters is, especially reading them in the past, for example, we know that in 08, 09, a tsunami is coming. We know that. So when I'm reading the 2005 letter or 2006 letter or 2007 letter, they don't know that, right? But I know that. So it's like you're about to go off the cliff down the waterfall, but you don't know that. Then they're in the waterfall, and then they're finally at the bottom. So you can see that whole thing play out in the letter. So that kind of gives you a view how the company deals with, how resilient the business model is and the adversity. It's the same thing with the pandemic, right? We can see what 2018, 2019 looks like, and then suddenly the pandemic hits, and kind of it's throwing some businesses are getting tailwinds and a lot of them are facing headwinds. If I am still interested in the business after reading the letters, then I go to the transcripts. So now the transcripts can be a little bit more, it's actually definitely not written by a PR firm, right? Because this is actually investors and analysts asking questions and so on and so forth. So I'm not that interested in the prepared remarks in the transcript, because that will be similar to what's in the reports and the annual reports, because they're controlling that messaging. But especially the companies that don't write their own letters, etc., I'm really interested in the Q&A. And of course, I have to sift through stuff because the analysts will ask some stupid question about next quarter, do you expect to beat by 1 penny or 2 pennies, and that sort of thing, which is not really relevant. But what I'm looking for is, when different questions are being asked about the business and they're making different comments, I have the full future in front of me, and just how did that unfold? Did they underpromise and overdeliver? Or did they overpromise and underdeliver? Or are they conservative? Are they aggressive? Those sorts of things. We can then look at the proxies, because that gives me a good feel for the, stock dilution and comp plans and all of that, how that is playing out. And then after all of that, if I'm still interested, then we start plowing into the financials and different parts of the annual report, risk factors, and so on. So that's usually the journey.
Do you talk to managers at all of companies?
For the longest time, I didn't talk to managers. Now, especially the ones that are not in the US, basically would not invest without having had plenty of interaction with the senior management, CEO, and so on. If it's a large US company, there's not that much you're going to glean. And also the availability they will not be very accessible to you. So you might be able to get to the IR department of some of the large companies, but may not be able to get beyond. Maybe you get to the CFO and so on. I would say that one of our investments is Micron. I've met Sanjay and I've had some interaction with their CFO and so on, but I think all of that was really irrelevant to the thesis.
Let's talk about Micron. How much of your portfolio does Micron weight?
It used to be a lot larger, but due to our drop in prices in 2022, well, it might still be similar proportions. But I would say, I think at one point Micron was around 20% of the pie, 25% of the pie. It may be a little bit less right now, just because things have come down a bit.
Can you tell us what are you seeing in Micron, for example, that makes you invest 25% of your money in one single company?
Well, we didn't invest 10%. We have a 10% limit on what we are willing to invest in a single business. So it became higher because it appreciated. But I am going to duck that question, and I'm going to probably duck a lot of questions related to what we currently own or what we're looking to buy and so on. So I will take a pass on that. At some point, we won't own Micron. We can then discuss it freely. But right now, I'll just take a pass.